Now the next item is supplementary reader. Supplementary reading. It is a story swept away. Swept away by Susan Hickling. The young French woman stepped out of her flooded house and disappeared beneath the water. Young French woman. The characters introduced in this is Serge, and his partner is a partner, that means life partner, Celine. It is Celine, and they are French people, and Celine. And let me read the first passage. Come on, we have got to get out of here now, Serge urged his partner Celine. The flood water that had poured into their little terraced home was already 30 centimeters deep and rising. Flood water, and there was a storm in that, and it is September. In the month of September, date was 22 and 2003. And the day, the storm, there was a big storm in their place, and the flood water ran into their house. It was already 30 centimeter deep, 30 centimeter deep, and rising. The level of the water was rising. The couple had lifted the sofa and dining table and stacked as many other possessions as they could out of the reach of the filthy water. There was a filthy water coming into the house, and they just lifted the sofa on the dining table. And they kept all the possessions, the important things on the sofa, so that to save from the filthy water. It was 2:15 p.m. and the day was Monday, September 22, 2003, and the small town of Lunel in southern France. Lunel, the name of the place is Lunel, and it is southern France, had been battered by violent storms since mid-morning. Since mid-morning, there was a big storm, and that battered the town. Council worker. Serge is a council worker. It is a council worker. And his age is 43. And Celine, a home help. And her age was 32. And they were living in that, and they lived most of their lives in Lunel, which stands only a few meters above the sea level. The place, the city, you can very well call it as a city, and it was above the sea level, only few meters. The flat, marshy area floods frequently. That marshy area they were living in is marshy. It is marshy area and floods frequently. This was the second time in just over a year that the couple had found the home invaded by water. And the second time the flood has come into. Serge and Celine stepped out of the street. They came out of the street. Now we are fast flowing thigh-high river, and in the street there was thigh-high water. They waded across the road. They just crossed the road, and Celine stepped over a low hedge which separated the street from the pavement. And there was a pavement. And Serge was following close behind when he saw Celine fell. In an instant, she had disappeared below the water. The pavement, between the road and the pavement, there was a small thing, and in that she slipped and fell into the water. She just disappeared into the water. She's dead, he thought. It is all over. All they will find is her body later. Celine felt herself being pulled under the water, and she has been pulled under the water. Instinctively, she reached up for Serge's hand, and she was shouting and she was stretching her hands. She felt his grasp, but her relief was short-lived as his hand slipped away, and she could not catch hold of his husband's hand because it was so slippery. So it slipped, and she was just fell into the water, and she could not understand what was happening. She was being swept along underwater, helpless and swallowing mouthfuls of filthy liquid, and she could not breathe, and she could drink some filthy water because of the current of the water. She could not breathe. I am going to die, she thought. I am drowning. There is no way I can survive this. And she thought for a while that she is going to die. Then she found that she could breathe again. In the dim light, she could see that she was about 10 meters from the manhole through which she had plunged, but the current made it impossible to swim back. And while she was going along with the water, she was swept along the water. She could see a manhole, and she was just pulled in. That means plunged. Plunged means plunged. Dived. Actually dived. Dived means she was pulled into the manhole, and she could not get away from that. The water pulled her inside, and she was in 2-meter wide concrete storm drain manhole. The manhole that it is also called the drainage. We call it in Tamil. We call it drainage, and it was 2-meter wide, which was almost completely filled with water and was still rising. The water was rising, and that already the drain was full of water, and the water level was rising. Across the drain stretched a small plastic pipe, and there was a pipe just across the drain. Further on, the tunnel was completely black. It was so black. I have got to try to grab that pipe, Celine thought. Celine thought that she could grasp the pipe. I have got to keep myself as high out of the water as I can. And she wanted to catch hold of that pipe, and she wanted to lift her body by catching the pipeline. Slippery though it was, she managed to grasp the pipe. Though it was slippery, she could grasp the pipe. With a supreme effort, she pulled the upper part of her body out of the water and maneuvered herself against it. Maneuvered. It is a maneuver. It is maneuvered. It means moved silently. Moved skillfully. She moved skillfully. She just caught hold of the pipe, and she lifted her body, though it was slippery, and she was sticking with that pipe, the wall, to stop herself being swept further along the drain. Above ground, Serge panicked. Serge was with a panicked voice. Serge was crying, "Help, help!" He cried, wading as fast as he could to his nearest neighbor's house. He was just searching for the Celine. Quick, Celine's been sucked down a drain. I have got to go back. I have got to get her out. And he was just shouting that he has to catch hold of her. No, said Louis Martinez. Louis Martinez is another character, and who lived opposite the couple, opposite house of that couple. We will ring the fire brigade, and they tried to reach the fire brigade. Drenched and freezed cold, Celine hung on. She was hanging on the pipe. Drenched, she was fully wet, and the climate was so chill that she could not tolerate that. thoughts came to her almost like photographs, all she was thinking about the past. She could see her daughter Amandine. Amandine is another character introduced here. The daughter turning to blow her a kiss as she hurried to school. She used to kiss her mother when she goes out to school. I will never see her again, she thought, as she would not be there to celebrate Amandine's 12th birthday in 2 weeks' time. That means they are going to celebrate her 12th birthday. The character is Amandine. Amandine, 12 years old girl. Old girl. It is their daughter, and they are going to celebrate the birthday in 2 weeks' time. No, she said to herself, I have got to be there for her. I have got to survive. And she was sure that she will come out of this water. And then there was surge. She thought of the squabble. She was just thinking about their family members one by one. First, she thought about Amandine, and next the surge. Squabble means noisy quarrel. Though there were quarrels in their family, and she loved her husband. And they had that morning. Now all she could think was that Serge would have to tell Amandine that her mother was dead. How will he tell her? She wondered. And he did not bear thinking about. She could not let it happen. I have got to fight to the very end. And she thought that she had to fight. She had to come out of the water and to meet their family members. The firemen finally managed to battle through the floods about an hour after they had received the call alerting them to Celine's disappearance. And Serge and the opposite house people, they just ran to the fire people and they came over and they were searching for Celine. They shone torches down the manhole and probed with metal rods, but there was no sign of the lady. As she hung from the pipe, Celine saw a bright light. It was the fireman, she realized, shining powerful torches down the manhole. And she could see the torchlight, the beam of the torchlight she could see, and there was a metal rod was given. And she started tapping on the pipe and battering the walls with her hands and arms. I'm here, she shouted. Come and get me. By seeing the torchlight, she shouted, but she just battering the walls with her hand and arms. But in the water has made more sound than her sound. So the sound did not reach the fire people. She watched as the firemen lowered metal rods, and she tried hard to shout about the noise of the racing water. Then, to her astonishment and anger, the lights and rod disappeared. And there was no response. That means they did not hear her shouting. So they just withdrew their work. It was black now in rain, and she felt objects smashing against her bags, branches, and the contents of bins all swept away in the flood. In the flood, there were things just came with fast and hit her. Unable to feel her legs. Celine was unable to feel her legs. She knew she could not hold on to the pipe any longer. She was just holding the pipe, and she could not hold on for a long time because it was slippery. I have got to do something, she thought. The water level had dropped to her chest. There has got to be an exit further on, she reckoned. She thought that there would be an exit, and there should be an end for it. all this water has got to go somewhere. Perhaps there is a grill. And she thought that there would be a stop in that passage, in the drain. If it was shut, she could be smashed to pieces against it. But if it was open, she would be free. She had to find out. And she thought that there would be an exit, and at the end of the exit, there would be gate. And if there is no gate, she will be able to escape. Otherwise, she will be dashed against that, and she will be smashed. After a while, she was able to touch the bottom of the drain with her feet, and the pipe had narrowed. Her hopes rose until suddenly her face smashed against something hard, protruding from the wall, an iron bar. Protruding. The projection, it was a projecting. There was a projection, that was an iron bar, and she dashed against it. And Celine lost consciousness for a moment, and she came round to find herself once more going under the water. Celine lost consciousness as she dashed against an iron bar. So then later on she picked up herself, and at the same time she could feel something above her. It seemed to be pieces of plastic hanging down from the roof. She grabbed one, and she could feel something above her head. It was plastic, pieces of plastic, and she caught hold of that piece, one of the piece. Soon the water picked up speed. The current became more and more difficult to resist, and Celine could no longer walk. She could not walk as the flood speeded. The current pulled her. So she was just rolling down. Forced on her to her back, she once again felt herself being sucked along out of control. She could not control herself, and she was pulled out from the current. She could not hold on to the plastic any longer. She felt her body being thrown around by water, turning over and over in the icy deluge. Deluge. It is the rushing water. She was pulled out, and she just turned over and over in that rushing water. Her shoulder, then her legs and knees slammed against the concrete wall, and there will be wall at both the sides of that tunnel. No, that against that wall she was just slammed, still being buffeted. This buffeted. Swing back and forth, and she buffeted by the terrifying force of the storm water. Celine did not immediately realize that she was in the open air, and the water, that current, pulled her out of the drain, but she could not realize that she was in the open air. Night was falling, so in the dark she could not see that she has come out of the drain. Then reality hit her. I am outside, she thought jubilantly. Jubilantly, it is victoriously. At last, she was very happy that she could realize that she is out of that tunnel, and she was thrown out of that tunnel. She was in the ditch whose water had overflowed into the large flooded area with houses on one side and fields on the other side. And there was houses in the other side, one side, and in the other side fields. In the middle of that, she was just thrown out of that drain, and she was lying down. She grabbed some tufts, group. He caught hold of the grass, in a group of grass and reeds but still unable to lift herself out of the torrent, she screamed for help. And she caught hold of that grass, a group of grass, she got hold of that, and she could not pull out her body. Only by that hold, she was just hanging on the bank of the drain. Above the roaring of the water, she had a man's voice, Jack Paradaso. And there is another character is introduced here, Jack Poderoso. And he is 45 years old, and he was an old teacher. 45 years old teacher, Jack Paradaso. And she could hear his voice. A man was standing on concrete platform just above the storm drain exit, checking that his daughter's horse was all right. And she was just looking for the horse of her daughter. Is there someone down there? He shouted. The Poderoso was shouting that, is there anyone down there? Yes, I am here, I am here. Celine yelled back. She was shouting. What is the time? And it is after 7, he replied. Celine was amazed. Have I been down here for 5 hours? So Celine was there in the drain for 5 hours. Celine was there 5 hours. She had been suffering from under the water. So, ring Serge, she shouted. Tell him I am alive. He thinks I am dead. Even at that time and at that critical moment, she was just thinking of her husband, Serge, and asked the teacher to ring him up. And Jack could see that woman was weak and still in danger. No, calm down. He said, you have got to get out of that river. And Celine managed to heave herself into the muddy bank. Heave, that means with a lot of effort, she tried to come up, but there was still no way Jack could reach her. Jack could not reach her, and she could not come out of that bank. And then she had, Jack forced Celine to give him Serge's number. That teacher asked her to give the number of her husband, and repeating it figure by figure above the water roar when nobody answered. And the teacher, he rang up to Serge, the Celine's husband, and there was no response for that. So again he asked Selina if she has got any other number, and Selina gave Serge's brother's number. Celine had ached, but urged on my back, she dragged herself to her feet, and slowly she could come out of that bank. Then she had another voice inquiring, where is the body? It was the fireman bearing a bag. It was after 8 p.m. when Serge arrived at Lunel's fire station. And she had the voice of a fireman, and she was looking for the body of Celine, but for their surprise, she was alive, and she was taken to the fire station, and by 8 o'clock, Serge came to that fire station. A fire engine pulled upside down, the door opened, inside sat Celine, her hair wet and bedraggled. It is bedraggled. It means full of water, mud with water. She was fully drenched with mud water, and she had no voice left. She could not speak. She could only collapse weeping into Serge's arm. She just laid upon the Serge's arm, and she could not talk. She could not open her mouth. She was so thin, and she was so tired. No one can understand how Celine survived. So has her own theory. When I want something, I am very determined. I wanted to be there for my daughter and for Serge. And she has got that guts that she once determined that she could come out of that critical position, and she came out. That is the end of the story. We have got some questions and answers at the back of the text, page number 97. Answer the following questions. Why did Serge and Celine decide to get out of their little terraced home? Why did Serge and Celine decide to get out of their little terraced home? Because the flood water entered their house. It was 30 centimeters. Deep, and it was rising. So they decided to get out of their home. And the answer you can find out in the very beginning of the story. Why did Serge and Celine decide to get out of their home, little terraced home? The flood water entered their house. It was 30 centimeters deep and it was rising. So they decided to get out of their home. The next question is, what did they do to safeguard their possessions? What did they do to safeguard their possessions? They lifted the sofa on the dining table. On the dining table, they stocked, that means stocked their possessions. High above the dirty water. Just to safeguard their possessions from the dirty water, they lifted the sofa on the dining table and they stored everything there. Question number 3. Where did Serge see Celine fall and disappear below water? Where did Serge see Celine fall and disappear below water? While wading across the road, Celine stepped over a hedge between the street and the pavement. and fell down and disappeared below water. As the water entered into their house, they just came out of their house and they just crossed the road, wading through the water, the running water. While wading across the road, Celine stepped over a hedge between the street and the pavement. Pavement means platform, and fell down and disappeared below the water. Suddenly she was pulled from in the current. Why could not Surge pull her out of water? Why he could not save her? In the very beginning, Surge grasped her, but his hand slipped. His hand slipped. Celine was swept along the underwater. See, he tried to grasp her, he tried to catch hold of her hand, but it was so slippery that he could not catch hold of her hand, so she slipped and just taken away. The next question. She is dead. He thought. Surge thought. Why did Surge think that Celine was dead? Why did he think like that? Celine disappeared below the water in an instant. That means suddenly. So, Surge thought that she was dead. She is dead. He thought, why did Surge think that Celine was dead? Celine disappeared below the water in an instant. Suddenly she was pulled in. So, he thought that she was dead. The next question. What made it difficult for Celine to swim back? That means why she could not swim back. The water current was so forceful, and this made it difficult for Celine to swim back. She was unable to swim back because of the current, water current. Now the next question is, what was the suggestion made by Serge's neighbor to save Celine? Serge's neighbor suggested that they should ring the fire brigade. And what was the suggestion made by Serge's neighbor to save Celine? As she was pulled down under the water, and the neighbor, Serge's neighbor, suggested that they should ring the fire brigade. Next question is, what made Celine fight to the very end? What made Celine fight to the very end? Celine thought of her daughter Amandine and her 12th birthday in 2 weeks' time. She wanted to be there to celebrate it. This thought made her to fight to the very end. What made Celine fight to the very end? Celine thought of her daughter Amandine and her 12th birthday in 2 weeks' time. She wanted to be there to celebrate it. This thought made her to fight to the very end. The next question is, why could not Celine realize that she was in the open air? Why she could not realize that? It was night. So Celine could not realize that she was in the open air. It was night, so she could not realize that. Who was Jack Poderoso? How did he help Celine? Who was Jack Poderoso? How did he help Celine? and Jack Poderoso was 45 years old teacher, and he was living in the same area, and he came out in search of her daughter's horse. He got the telephone number from Celine and rang up to Serge and his brother. He gave information about Celine to Serge and his brother. Jack Poderoso was 45 years old teacher. He got the telephone number from Celine and rang up to Serge and his brother. The next question. How long had Celine been under the drain? That means the ditch. How long she had been? And Celine had been under the drain for 5 hours. Celine had been under the drain for 5 hours. Now the next question is, whom did Celine ask Jack to contact when she was rescuing her? Whom did Celine ask Jack to contact when she was rescuing her? When Jack was rescuing her. When Jack was rescuing her, Celine wanted to ring Serge and tell him that she was alive. Celine wanted to ring Serge and tell him that she was alive. Now the next item is rearrange in sequence the following sentences and rewrite in a paragraph. And there are in your textbook, page number 98, some sentences are given, 5 sentences are given, and they are jumbled, they are not in sequence. We have to arrange them. The first sentence is, the pressure of water was so strong and Celine's hand so slippery that Serge could not hold on. The next sentence is, Serge quickly splashed over to help her up. Third one, her hand disappeared from view. Fourth one, he grabbed it and pulled with all his might. Fifth one, but all he saw was a hand reaching out of the water. And now we have to arrange them and rewrite them sequentially. So the second sentence will come first. That means, and let us give our own number and the real number. Serge quickly splashed over to help her up. The next one is fifth one. But all he saw was a hand reached up out of the water. The next one is fourth one. He grabbed it and pulled with all his might. Next, the first one, the pressure of the water was so strong and Celine's hand so slippery that Serge could not hold on. Now the next one is number 3. Her hand disappeared from view. Now we have to rewrite. You have to rewrite them in a paragraph. Now we have arranged it. You write them in a paragraph. Serge quickly splashed over to help her up, but all he saw was a hand reached up out of the water. He grabbed it and pulled with all his might. The pressure of the water was so strong and Celine's hand so slippery that Serge could not hold on. Her hand disappeared from view. Now the next one is B. I am just going to read it. The first one, yes, I am here. Celine yelled back, what is the time? And the second one, is there someone down there? He shouted. Third one, Jack Paradazzo, a 45 years old teacher, was standing on the concrete platform just above the drain exit. And the fourth one, Celine was amazed. Have I been here for 5 hours? And the fifth one, it is after 7 p.m. He replied. We have to arrange them in an order. So the first one will be Jack Paradazzo, a 45 years old teacher, was standing on the concrete platform just above the drain exit. Third one. The next one is the second one. Is there someone down there? He shouted. The next one is yes, I'm here. Celine yelled back. What is the time? What is the time? Then the next one is the fifth one. It is after 7 p.m. He replied. The next one is the fourth one. Celine was amazed. Have I been here for 5 hours? Now again, Jack Poderoso, a 45 years old teacher, was standing on the concrete platform just above the train exit. Is there someone down there? He shouted. Yes, I'm here, Celine yelled back. What is the time? It is after 7 p.m., he replied. Celine was amazed. Have I been here for 5 hours? The next item is match the following. Match the following. 1, Serge. The 2 is Jack. Third one, Lunel. The fourth one, Celine. The fifth one, Amanda. Then the next side, a small town. Celine's daughter. Next one is wife of Serge. The next one is teacher. Next one, council worker. Now let us match it. Serge is a council worker, so it is number 1. The one Serge, council worker. Next, Jack. Jack is a teacher, so this is 2, number 2. Jack, a teacher of 45 years old. Next, Lunel is a small town in France, a small town. So this is number 3. And Celine. Celine is the wife of Serge. So it is number 4. Amandine is the Celine's daughter. It is number 5. So Serge, council worker. Jack, teacher. Lunel, a small town. Celine, wife of Serge. Amandine, Celine's daughter. Now let us see how the questions are asked in the public examination. In April 2012, English second paper, in section A. Section A is for a supplementary reader. The first question was fill in the blanks with the appropriate phrases given below to form a complete, meaningful paragraph. And 5 marks is given for this. And Celine lost consciousness dash and came round to find herself once more. Now the dash at the same time she could feel something. Sorry, this is the second one and this is the third one. It seemed to be the fourth one, hanging down from the roof. She grabbed one. Soon the water picked up speed, and there are some options are given here. The first one is above her. Picked up speed. Pieces of plastics going under the water. Fifth one is for a moment. So, Celine lost consciousness. Celine lost consciousness for a moment. For a moment. Celine lost consciousness for a moment. And came round to find herself once more going under the water. So the fourth one, it is going under the water. At the same time, she could feel something. She could feel something above her. And it seemed to be pieces of plastics. Hanging down from the roof, she grabbed one. Soon water picked up speed. This was the question asked in the April 2012. Celine lost consciousness for a moment and came round to find herself once more going under the water. At the same time, she could feel something above her. It seemed to be pieces of plastics hanging down from the roof. She grabbed one. Soon the water picked up speed. And if you go through the text thoroughly, then only you will be able to attend such type of questions. In the same question number 3 was match the following appropriately. In that, there was a question from this. Who is Louis Martinez? Who is Louis Martinez? And the option was given, offered to ring the fire brigade. This was a option given in that. Match the following. And in October 2012, there was a question number 2. read the following sentences and identify the character or speaker. And in that, the option 1 was I have got to try to grab that pipe. I have got to try to grab that pipe. And who said this? Can you guess? It is Celine. When she was pulled inside the current, that means inside the drain, and she happened to see the pipe going in the middle of that, and she tried to grab that. And in this question paper, again in the match the following appropriately, there was a question from this story. B. Celine, wife of Serge. And the next question in the same one, describe the traumatic experience of Celine after being swept away into the drain. This was a paragraph question. 5 marks for this. Describe the traumatic experience of Celine after being swept away from the drain. And the paragraph I will give you at the end of the session. In April 2013, question number 2, read the following sentences and identify the character or speaker. And the fourth option was I am outside. I am outside. I am outside, I am outside. Who yelled this? As Celine came out of the drain, she realized that she is out of the drain. So she happily, victoriously, she shouted like this. So it is the Celine. The next question is match the following appropriately. In this question, D. Lunel, a small town in France. And why again and again it is asked? And if you just keep it in your mind and so that you will be able to rewrite it. The next question was complete the following sentences choosing the correct answer from the options given. Options given below, it is given below. And the third option there was Celine grabbed dash across the drain. A, and options were given: a plastic pipe, B, a rope, and C, an iron rod, the D, a plant. Just to confuse you, all the options are given, and she grabbed a plastic pipe, that means a plastic pipe. The next question in the same question paper, question number 5. Read the passage given below and answer the questions that follow. There was a passage given in that council worker Serge, 43, and 32-year-old Celine, a home help, had lived most of their lives in Lunel, which stands only a few meters above the sea level. The flat, marshy area floods frequently. This was the second time in just over a year that the couple had found the home invaded by water. Serge and Celine stepped out into the street, now a fast-flowing thigh-high river. They waded across the road, and Celine stepped over a low hedge which separated the street from the pavement. Serge was following close behind when he saw Celine fall. In an instant, she had disappeared below the water. Now, let us see the questions asked at the back of it. And the first one was, who were Serge and Celine? Who were Serge and Celine? Serge and Celine were couples who lived in Lunel. Serge was a council worker and Celine was a home help. And if you just go through the passage given in the question paper and put a bracket mark it, write the answer, that will not be good. If you want to improve yourself, you try to write your own sentences. Then next one. Next question is, where did they spend most of their lives? They spent most of their lives in Lunel. In Lunel, a town in southern France. They spent most of their lives in Lunel, a town in southern France. The next question is, why had they stepped out of their home? Their house was invaded by flood water. So they stepped out of their home. See, their house was invaded by flood water, so they stepped out of their home. Now the next question is, what did Celine step over? What did Celine step over? Celine stepped over a low hedge which separated the street from the pavement. What did Celine step over? Celine stepped over a low hedge which separated the street from the pavement. Now the next question is, what happened to Celine? What happened to Celine? Celine stepped over a low hedge and fell into the water. In an instant, she disappeared below the water. What happened to Celine? Celine stepped over a low hedge and fell into the water. In an instant, she disappeared below the water. In June 2013, that means instant examination, there was a question from this story. Read the following sentences and identify the character or speaker. Now we will ring the fire brigade. Who said this? Now we will ring the fire brigade. And it was Serge's neighbor suggested that. And his name was Louis Martinez. Louis Martinez, his name was. And in question number 3, match the following also. We have a line from the story. Match what? B. Amandine, Celine's daughter. Match the following. Amandine, Celine's daughter. And in September 2013, there was a question. Again, read the following sentences and identify the character or speaker. Again, the same thing, Serge. We will ring the fire brigade. The same line is asked in the next examination also. So the same answer, it is Serge's neighbor. Serge's neighbor, and his name was Louis Martinez. Louis Martinez. The same question paper, question number 3, match the following appropriately. In that, Serge, the name of Serge was given, and the option was council worker. And question number 4, complete the following sentences choosing the correct answer from the options given below. Complete the following sentences choosing the correct answer from the options given below. And the question was, Amanda was to celebrate her dash birthday. And the options were 12th, 13th, 10th, 9th. The options were 12th, 13th, 10th and 9th. Amanda was to celebrate her 12th birthday. The option A, and she was to celebrate 12th birthday. 12th birthday is the answer, correct answer. Now let us see the paragraph question. Describe the traumatic experience of Celine after being swept away into the drain. Describe the traumatic experience of Celine after being swept away into the drain. Celine was swept along underwater. She found herself in a concrete storm drain. She held on a plastic pipe and kept herself above the water level. She was battered by the deluge, floating objects like bags and branches smashed against her. Celine was swept along underwater. She found herself in a concrete storm drain, and it was specially built for sending away the flood water. She held on a plastic pipe and kept herself above the water level. She found a plastic pipe, though it was slippery, she could get hold of that. And she was battered by the deluge, the muddy water, and the floating objects just battered her. Floating objects like bags and branches smashed against her. An iron bar hit her face. For a moment, Celine lost her consciousness. Then she recovered. The current became more violent. Celine felt herself being sucked along out of control. And after some time, she realized that she was out of the drain. She caught hold of some tufts of grass and escaped from the flood water. She had been struggling for 5 hours in the underwater. An iron bar hit her face. For a moment, Celine lost her consciousness, and then she recovered. And after some time, when iron bar hit her face and she lost her consciousness, then she recovered. The current became more violent. The flood water current became more violent. Celine felt herself being sucked along out of control. She could not control herself. She was washed away along with the water current. After some time, she realized that she was out of the drain, and she was just thrown out of the drain, and she caught hold of some tufts of grass and that was on the bank, and escaped from the flood water. She had been struggling for 5 hours in the underwater.